All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Arun Gupta. We are here as part of the virtual DevRel meetup. Virtual DevRel is about developer relations, whether you are a developer advocate, community manager, technology evangelist, whatever you call yourself. If you are in the business of, or in the craft rather, we're not a business. We are in the craft of making your developers happy, successful, passionate users of your product. We talk about it here. So our craft is growing, and I'm very excited to have Baruch here with me today. Hello, Baruch.
Hi Arun, hi everybody.
Excellent. So Baruch recently moved from Israel to Silicon Valley. And so the topic is very relevant in terms of what Baruch is presenting. He's talking about is move to Silicon Valley required for developer evangelism? And I've been watching HBO Silicon Valley quite regularly. And it's a lot of fun watching that series, how they're doing evangelism and stuff like that.
Well,
But
that's a documentary actually, right?
true, true, true. So
Yeah,
today I'm excited to,
probably for the rest of the world it's kind of a sitcom, but for us it's a pure documentary.
it's absolutely, you live and breathe that stuff on a regular basis. It's like, oh yeah, each and every nugget you can enjoy that way. Okay, fantastic. So Baruch, why don't you introduce yourself and run the show?
All right, so let me share my screen right here. Uh, that will be that. Looking good. All right. Okay. So yeah, but my title is a little bit different. Is Move to Silicon Valley Required for Developer Advocacy, not Evangelism. I'll talk about why the change of the name in a minute. Well, this is me. My name is Baruch Sadogorski, and I'm developer advocate with JFrog. You can follow me on Twitter at jbaruch, of course. Real jbaruch is a really nice Twitter handle, not me. As Arun mentioned, I moved from Israel. That you may think about something like that. Well, it's actually not so much, and you probably know it's just a joke. Israel is a very big hub of high tech in general and startup innovation in particular. And the company I work with, JFrog, was founded in Israel almost a decade ago. Um, and all the development is still going on in Israel. We have a great bunch of developers there, around 100 developers, and all our products, JFrog Artifactory, JFrog Bintray, JFrog X-Ray, the new one, and the JFrog Mission Control are all developed there. And we're going to talk about why JFrog as a company moved their headquarters to Silicon Valley, and why I moved as well. So that's me when I had hair and was not that fat. Back on the day, we were running events with our previous company, Alpha CSP. So you can see here in one of the pictures, was a consulting company for Java in Israel for another decade, starting I think 1998, if I remember correctly, and we made those events, and I was speaking there regularly on those Java events, and somehow um, I found myself enjoying it very much. And when JFrog felt the need of someone that could do technology, um, I would say, relationships, then they that was a natural. I was the natural fit. Regarding the name, technology evangelism in general, or uh, evangelist as a title, being an Israeli company, and our CEO and one of the founders, he's uh, not a religious Jew, but a traditional Jew. So he had really big problems with the Christian connotations of the word evangelism. And interestingly enough, although me personally, I'm fine with the Christian meaning of the word, I think that for our skill, advocacy is a better fit, because evangelism, by definition, means a belief, and religious, I would say, a little bit more of a fanatic view of things, just blind beliefs. And what we do is actually very reasonable, very rational. So advocacy sounds like a better fit for me in general, and for JFrog as a company. So that's why I call myself a developer advocate, and why I changed the title of this presentation as well. So now let's talk about Silicon Valley, and why for a company moving or the headquarters to Silicon Valley is very important. So for whoever started their career here, um, usually people take a lot of things for granted, the people that they grow into, and it's the same with the high-tech culture of Silicon Valley. You think that this is how things work. You think that this is how it's been everywhere, but it's definitely not the case. Silicon Valley is indeed the best place for a startup to be as of today, because it's exactly where you can find the best people to do the startup job. So that's where you have the best investors that you can find. That's the place when you can have the best lawyers you can find. Um, that's the place when you have the best sales team you can find, and of course the place when you can find the best PR and advertising teams, that marketing teams that you can find. Great infrastructure, of course, and great developers. And this shouldn't be taken for granted, as I mentioned, because it's really a unique place for a lot of great minds to come together to build up this startup uh, startup culture. But the really important thing why companies move, and why JFrog moved, are the customers. Most of our customers are in the area, Silicon Valley in particular, Bay Area in general, and being close to them is extremely important, and yields great results for us. The fact that we can contact them on the real-time basis, that our sales or executives can have a lunch with whoever they need to take a lunch with every day of the week, and the fact that if our CEO wants to pay visit to our customers, he doesn't need to plan it to a month ahead with flights and hotels, and can just go and pay visit to whoever they want to. That's that's very, very important. So we indeed moved to Silicon Valley, and that's our office. Actually, this is another screenshot from Silicon Valley, a show, particularly a third episode of the second season, 33rd minute and 20 seconds second, if someone wants to check me. And this is our office right here. One of the results, tangible results that we can feel accept of course, are ramping up the sales, and giving better support to our customers with less effort, is something that can happen only to companies in Silicon Valley. Our latest round of $50 million for infrastructure company is something that shouldn't be taken for granted. And of course, it happened thanks to the fact that we are here in Silicon Valley. So that's why the company moved. But the interesting question for our discussion is why I moved. And for that, let's talk a little bit about developer, about our craft. From my point of view, I I would say that this diagram says it all in terms of who we are. right? We have to have a very strong technical skills. We have to have very good presentation skills and storytelling skills, and also this the fact that the marketing guys aren't your enemies, and not every marketing is always bad, is something that we also acknowledge and know about. And the merger, the sweet spot of all those skills, I think that's what makes a good developer advocate. And interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, that's a pretty rare combination. So we are of rare species, which is of course good for us. Less competition on work, better salaries, of course, but it also means that they're hard to find. And we're going to talk a little bit about how many developers and advocates company needs and where they should be located. But keeping in mind the fact that most of our community, most of our customers, most of our users are actually here in Silicon Valley, JFrog had to have a developer advocate in Silicon Valley, and we searched. We searched a lot up until we got to a conclusion that it will probably be simpler and cheaper to just move me from Israel here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened to the um, to the location of the community that I work with. This is me on my daily commute to work. We fly a lot, and that's not surprise for any of you. That's not very updated, but pretty much summarizes it all. That's my travel over the last, I think, a year or something. And the real question, and I'm of course not bragging here by with my miles, because we have guys uh, like Josh Long, and that's just, I had to put this tweet here for you because it is hilarious and summarizes very well what we do for a living, right? And then the question is, okay, so if we fly so much, why does it even matter where we fly from? We have this place where our Wi-Fi connects automatically, but I'm pretty sure that for most of us, Hilton Wi-Fi or Marriott Wi-Fi connects automatically as well. Um, and that's because this is what we do. So the real question is, so why does it matter? Why does it matter what you call your home, or what you call your home airport? Because you on the road anyhow most of the time. And I think this screenshot can be a kind of an answer. You can see here that's just a list of Docker meetups. Unfortunately, I got the number somewhere and I cannot find it now. If I'm not in error, we're talking about 65 meetups in North America for Docker. 65 is more than the number of states, and that means a lot of coverage for those meetups. And when I fly from Israel to those meetups, it's not very trivial. It's not very trivial in terms of investment, how much the trip costs. Of course, flying across Atlantic to visit a meetup is not usually a cost-effective thing, and of course, how many meetups I can go to. So we have a bunch of meetups here in Silicon Valley that I can actually travel by car at every given day. When I was in Israel, that will require a fly over half half the globe to get there. So that's very important. The amount of event, small and big, that I can attend in North America is significantly higher. And when we are talking about company, which most of the community and the market is in North America, that's of course important. I didn't mean that European conferences are less important in any way. but I guess it depends on the stage of the company, and we are going to talk about that maybe a little bit later about discussion. Another very, very important aspect is the real-time communication. So when I need to ping Garun, I just ping him and he replies, and then we speak. And this is again a very new and different experience for me, because when you work from a time zone which is almost exact the opposite, day and night, this is something that usually won't happen. It will take 24 hours for every collaboration or every conversation to continue, and that's of course a very big deal as well. Talking about time zones and being in the time zone of your community, look here at the bottom. This is the list of the tools that I usually work with. All right, so it doesn't include my flight tickets on Tripit, but otherwise you can see here a lot of collaboration tools. Well, of course, my IntelliJ IDEA and Atom and for developers, but also Gitter and TweetDeck and every um, other tools that I'll collaborate with the rest of the community. And Twitter, of course, being one of the most important channels. And here again, the real time and the time zone plays a very big difference. And just for you to understand how important those Twitter discussions for me, that's a very nice chart of emotions and confrontational scale of different cultures and origins. And just keeping in mind that I was born and raised in Russia and lived most of my life in Israel actually gives you some kind of a clue on how involved in the Twitter discussions I am. So time zone and time zone of course matters for those, because as you can see here, when it's a day in San Francisco, it's night in Tel Aviv. And it basically means that when I was in Israel and I had my working hours, so I worked 9 to 6 in the office, getting ready for the conferences, preparing my talks, doing some coding, of course, and writing blogs, etc. And then I came home and wanted to go to sleep, but you cannot really go to sleep because someone is wrong on the internet, and especially on Twitter, someone maybe praises your competitor or bashes your product and throwing dirt on JFrog, or just having wrong opinions about anything in technology that you should argue. So my working day when I was in Israel looked a little bit like that. From 9 to 6, it's everything war related. Then I came home, have a couple of hours with my family, and then boom, US is awake, California is awake, someone is wrong on the internet. It's time to go and fight the trolls, right? And getting back to the events question. So does it really matter where we fly from? So here you can see the map. That's our JFrog linear page. You can see here the spread of the events that we attend. So we're talking about 40 events a year, and they are kind of well spread between United States and Europe. So you can see here that we have a good amount of events in Europe, a good amount of events on East Coast and West Coast, and a lot of naturally events in Israel, which are a kind of our home-based events. But still, you can see the significant amount of conferences just here on the West Coast, and this is huge, because that means that I can drive to them. I can have 1 hour, 2 hours flights to most of them, and that means that I can cover much more from here that I could do from Israel, of course. So once I'm here and getting back to the social media pane, uh, when it's night, it looks like I have nothing to do because I fight all the fights in Leader during the day. So now during the day, not only I write my talks, I prepare the demos, the blog posts, etc., but also engage with the community on the social network. And then on the night, what can I do? Well, I guess I can sleep, and that's of course again a new and interesting experience from me as well. Another very nice side effect for me personally was, of course, improve in my English speaking skills. So everybody, of course, in the office and in the community now speak English, and there is no better way to learn a language than to immerse in it. So that's another a very nice side effect of that. So summarizing all of that, that's like a decision. Then that's a table of pros and cons for everybody. So JFrog, of course, got much more coverage from me in the US in general and the East and the West Coast in particular. More events, more webinars in right hours, right time zone, more meetups, and real-time community interaction. I got much less jet lag because not every trip is transatlantic with the opposite hours, but there are a lot of short trips that of course have no jet lag at all. I get my weekends back because most of the conferences are during the week when I flew from Israel. Because of the flight time and the time difference, I usually missed one of the 2 weekends around the conference and not anymore. I got my nights back because everyone is awake during the day, so I don't need to stay awake during the night, and my English skills are much better now. On the con side, I guess JFrog paid quite a lot of money to bring me here, and they have to deal with me being in the office when I'm not away, which I try to, you know, but being away as much as possible, so minimizing the damage of me being in the office. And for me personally, it's all good. Um, of course, we look for developer advocates, but also for a lot of technical sales and marketing positions. And so if you know someone that wants to work for an amazing company here in Silicon Valley, please let me know as well. And I think I'm done with my short presentation because I think that the interesting part actually starts now.
Excellent. Thank you, Baruch. This is fantastic. Very in a very characteristic way, as you always do. Very hilarious. I purposely muted myself because I was having big laughs, and I know there are a lot of personal stories to share here, but we won't reveal them here. So let's do this way. So I have a couple of questions, and if people have questions, I am also monitoring #devrel stream. If people want to ask questions over there. So far, I don't see any questions, but if you have any questions, use #devrel tag and ask us over there. But let's see, on the meetup, first of all, there are a couple of questions over there. Well, not a couple of more questions, but by two people. So first one is, uh, depends, move the office or individual evangelists, online or offline evangelism, where is the market for a global player? I'd say an evangelist in every continent at least. Do you want to address that?
Well, I think that's a great set of questions, and of course the big question of our meetup today is the move actually required have to do with a lot of those clarifications, right? So move to the office or individual evangelists. Of course, the location of individual evangelist is less is less of an importance, because just because of the fact that the big part of being in a certain location is being in the office and interaction with other people. So for me, when I am in the office, that's priceless time, because I can speak with the sales guys, with the marketing guys, and of course with our technical team to to immerse in the what's new in our product, how we should position better, what we should what I should evangelize, or giving my feedback to the back to the team. So of course, when you have an office, and this office is not like a co-working space when you are the only representative of this company, but it's actually a live office with a lot of employees with your company. It's extremely important to be there. For in my case, that was less important because I moved from one JFrog office to another JFrog office, so I had this interaction both in both locations. So that's regarding the office or individual. Now, offline or online, that's again a valid concern. If you do offline evangelism, then it really doesn't matter on what time and in which location you write your blog post. When we are talking about online, and that's, for example, something that we do now, the time zone might be of a difference. Of course, for attending this conference, I would definitely stay up late or wake up like this meetup. I would stay up late or wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning. But would say that probably I won't be as crisp at 3 a.m. in the morning as I am now. So again, for online, it's a little bit less important. When we are talking about real events like conferences and stuff, that's a whole difference in the world. And that's because of the travel, because of the jet lag, because of the amount of the events that you can cover in a certain area when you are local. It is a huge difference. So that's where the really the difference is, right? Um, and another comment that Foki makes here is that for a global player, and I guess that's the company for a global company, I'd say evangelist in every continent at least makes sense. And I think Arun, you have a comment on that as well.
Yeah, well, I think I would not, even if I were to put an evangelist in each continent, I would probably not put it in Antarctica as much as I would love to be there myself. Uh, but I think, I'm going to go back to what you said earlier. To me, what matters is, where does your target audience sit? Where are your customers sitting? Who do you want to evangelize to? Are you a product evangelist? Are you a technology evangelist? Are you a platform evangelist? If your audience is sitting across all the continents and you want to reach out to them, yes, absolutely, it makes sense. We all wish we have unlimited time, resources, money, but we don't. So we optimize it and then figure out what makes the best sense. I used to work at Oracle, Red Hat, at Sun. In Sun, yes, we would have evangelists across all continents. So was the case with Oracle. With Red Hat, again, we were across two continents, and then people would travel. And then now I'm at Couchbase. Again, we have evangelists in two different continents. So if there's a need in Asia, we send somebody over. Or if there's a need in South America, we send somebody over. But the evangelists are primarily based in North America and Europe, because that's where the biggest customer base is.
Right. So, and that's true, and that's probably will happen with us very relatively soon enough. Once we will be able to hire someone in Europe that meets our needs, we will probably have the same setup. We will have a developer advocate in the States and a developer advocate in Europe. Well, when I was in Israel, Israel is not exactly Europe, because we still have pretty significant flights to most of the European locations. And that means that for us, I wasn't like in not there and not here. And in the stage of JFrog a couple of years ago, when we were very focused in North America and the States, and particularly in Silicon Valley, that was the first and most significant need cover this region. As we grow bigger, as we establish I would say recognition in North America, in Silicon Valley, the need for developer advocate here actually continues to be high, but the other regions start to be as important, at least. So we want the recognition to be better and the perception to be better in Europe, and that means that we definitely need to have someone in Europe. So it really depends on a state of a company. And that actually resonates with another comment from Loren here in our meetup that mentioned that Josh Long and Ray Tsang actually should move to Europe because most of the time they spend in European conferences, and that's again exactly what I meant, right? So they kind of already covered North America. But everybody already used Spring and Spring Boot, and Josh gave his amazing talk in every possible conference in North America. So now it's time to start and cover other places as well. And that's the same for Ray with Kubernetes. So it shifts depending on the state, depending on what you do and where your company is and what are the goals for developer advocacy in the company. And of course, I guess most of the companies in our business have to have United States, Silicon Valley, and Europe, Western Europe covered.
So in your case, it made business sense for the JFrog headquarters to move from Israel to Silicon Valley. But for companies that cannot afford that cost, do you think it still makes sense for them to have a developer evangelist, even though by itself siloed and located in Silicon Valley?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I'm really not sure because I think that the headquarters are much more important than developer advocate if you ask me to be in the Silicon Valley, because the developer evangelism is only one of those services that you need to get and give in the Silicon Valley. But the others, like investors, like the sales, like being around your customers the for the business needs, I would say is more important than attending more local meetups, and that's like the benefit of having a developer advocate here. So I would say that the first step would be establishing a US entity, maybe even kind of an abstract one or a virtual one, and then at least by name, moving the headquarters here and starting to work with the local PR agencies and investors and lawyers, etc., etc., and then the community effort can be heavily shifted, right? So I was in the States every month or 2 months when 2 years ago as well, when I came from Israel for every trip. It was of course less convenient. It wasn't as effective, but I was here, right? And so you can do that from outside of North America and Silicon Valley. So I would say the business concerns that have to be local come first, and then you search for developer advocate. And but of course, if you have a rune that comes to you and say, you know what, I want to work for you. You don't have an office here, but I'm fine with that. Hire him.
So another question on the same note, if your center is financial district, then you probably want to move to San Francisco or New York. So kind of again going back to your point, see where your business is, and
Exactly.
that's where you want to be as close to that as possible, given your resources.
Right,
Okay.
right. So if your customers are bank and finance, New York will be your goal. If your customers are software enterprises, Silicon Valley will be your goal. And I see here on Twitter there is a comment about me being joked about the best of everything in the valley. And Gutam, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, mentioned that he disagrees that the best developers are in Silicon Valley. Well, it was all kind of a joke, right?
Yeah.
So what I can guarantee is that the marketing, the sales, being close to VPs are and the PR companies are absolutely the best in the Silicon Valley, and that's for sure. Developers, look at JFrog. Our development team is still in Israel because we believe that the best developers are in Israel. But of course, people might disagree with that as well. But when it comes to business, when it comes to sales, when it comes to marketing, and the VPs, not there is nothing to come that comes close.
Well,
That's
I
for
think,
sure.
yeah, and well, I've been living here for close to 20 years now, so I am kind of bought into that dream, And what I would say is, I agree that the number of developers, good to bad, is maybe consistent throughout, but the number of developers are so damn high here. So the number of good developer pools automatically becomes high. One. Second is, this is where, pick a venture capitalist. They're literally down the road in Menlo Park or San Francisco or Palo Alto or Los Altos, and that's what makes it so much easy and accessible to you, that you can reach out to them. There is TechCrunch and all sorts of events happening. There's a bit of a vibe in Silicon Valley that is pretty much lacking, and several other places, and most of the other places. So I think it's not just about developer, it's that overall equation that brings you where the sum becomes better than the whole.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So the whole startup atmosphere and the whole startup scene, this is how they call it, is of course a top notch here in Silicon Valley and can be compared. And here my Israeli patriotism speaks to Israel, but not a lot of other places in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Let's see if there are. I think we already talked about Laurent's comment. Yeah. So one of the questions I wanted
We
to
did.
ask you is, now that you have moved to Silicon Valley, do you travel to Israel to take care of your customers back there?
Yes, so the customers back there, we don't have a lot of customers in Israel, just because it's a relatively small market. So I do travel a lot to Europe to take care of the community there, but I still come to Israel a lot because, as I mentioned, the development is in Israel, and a developer advocate who is not connected to the development team of the company has no value at all
Right.
whatsoever, right?
Right.
So it's not that I stopped being up at nights to speak with the other part of the world, but when I was in Israel, my community was up on my nights, and now it's my developers are up on my nights. But they are more flexible, I have to say. So if I prefer meetings early mornings or late evenings, they can accommodate that. Twitter, for some reason, didn't want to stay up all night to argue with me.
All right. Okay. Well, I don't see any other question, but I think that has been really valuable. And hopefully that gives some insight to people who are contemplating a move to Silicon Valley, or who are not even thinking about it, but I guess give them some guidance on why DevRel in Silicon Valley matters.
Well, I hope so. I hope it was useful, and of course you can continue on Twitter using the Devrel hashtag, and I am J Baruch on Twitter. So feel free to ping me as well if you have any questions.
Thank you, Baruch. This was done in Google Hangouts on air, so the recording would be right away available anyway. And so thank you, and I'll see you again.
Thank you for
Bye.
hosting me. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.